Everyone loves superhero movies these days. Marvel cranks out at least 5 every year, with DC desperately trying to catch up by releasing even more. Stories from comic books are experiencing the most cinematic success in history. These movies have lots of CGI effects. In today's video, we are going to discuss about top 10 worst superhero movie CGI effects ever. Number 10. Not so fantastic stretching. Fantastic Four, 2005. Mid-2000s Marvel was certainly not the Marvel we know and love today. Case in point, the horrible 2005 adaptation of Fantastic Four, produced by Marvel Enterprises as it was known then. Fantastic Four starred Lone Griffith as Mr. Fantastic, the founding member of the Fantastic Four. Mr. Fantastic has the bizarre ability to stretch his body and elongate his limbs. It looks a little goofy on the page, and it looks even goofier in live action. The CGI of Griffith's elongated limbs is consistently terrible, looking like something out of a cheap television show rather than a $100 million blockbuster. Fantastic Four isn't a good movie, and this abhorrent CGI certainly doesn't help. Number 9. Hellboy vs. Giants. Hellboy, 2019. It's pretty bad when the Hellboy from 2004 often looks better than the Hellboy from 2019. Hellboy fights 3 giants at the beginning of the film. And while this should have made an epic sequence, the poor CGI ruins any semblance of excitement. The mixing of practical effects and CGI was not a good decision, as the CGI is quite poor and incredibly easy to pinpoint amidst the real footage. Perhaps the worst offender is Hellboy's stone fist. Number 8. Blade's Eyes, Blade Trinity, 2004. The entire entry in the Blade series was widely maligned, and while we're not blaming the CGI eyes in particular, they are indicative of a bigger problem. In the movie's final scene, Blade is lying on a slab and about to be cut open when he suddenly opens his eyes and attacks. If the sequence looks a little off, it's because the eyes have actually been computer generated onto Wesley Snipes' face. Story goes that Snipes and director David S. Goyer did not get along, and while filming this climactic sequence, Snipes refused to open his eyes, seemingly just to spite and frustrate Goyer. Goyer essentially said fine, whatever, and decided to go with CGIs instead. Number 7. The Suit, Green Lantern, 2011. Ryan Reynolds has enjoyed one of the biggest career revivals in movie history. It was looking quite dour for a minute there, and that minute encompassed the execrable Green Lantern. For some bizarre reason, the team behind Green Lantern decided to ditch the traditional costume in favor of a CGI suit. And despite hiring Academy Award-winning costume designer Neela Dixon, the results were truly deplorable. The CGI suit makes Hal look otherworldly, not in a good way, but he looks like a video game character kind of way. They couldn't even bother making a good green eye mask, and the CGI clashes horribly with Reynolds' very real face. Number 6. Wolverine's Claws, X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2009. Even the most die-hard superhero fans admit that X-Men Origins Wolverine leaves a lot to be desired, particularly the visual effects. Wolverine's computer-generated adamantium claws earned widespread derision from fans and critics alike. Most people consider the bathroom scene to be particularly awful, as the CGI on display is like something we would have seen back in 1992. It doesn't blend with Hugh Jackman's fists at all, and the texturing is so bland and simple that it looks cruelly photoshopped. It's one of the most infamous scenes in superhero movie history, and for good reason. Number 5. Superman's Lip, Justice League, 2017. Rather than being the DCEU's magnum opus, Justice League was mostly a calamity that became more famous for its poor CGI than anything else. Despite a $300 million price tag, Justice League often looks quite poor, with Steppenwolf being a particularly egregious example, but it's Superman's lip that always incites mockery. As most people know by now, Henry Cavill was sporting a mustache for Mission Impossible Fallout and couldn't shave it for the Justice League reshoots, so Paramount executives decided to digitally erase it in post. It was the worst decision they could have possibly made, and the results look like a goofy Snapchat filter. Number 4. Leaping Catwoman. Catwoman, 2004. Not so hot take, Catwoman isn't just one of the worst superhero films ever made, it's one of the worst films ever made, period. The infamous basketball scene has been well and truly covered, and many consider it the poorest scene in the whole movie. But may we also suggest all the leaping around, including the robbery scene. This sequence features some truly horrendous CGI. With Catwoman's wall jumping looking like something out of a PS2 game, this movie reportedly had a budget of $100 million, and it's scenes like this that make us wonder where the money went. Number 3. Superhide, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003. Talk about wasted potential. We love the concept of classic literary characters fighting evil in Victorian Europe. However, this 2003 movie adaptation completely bungled it, and is even responsible for bringing about the end of Sean Connery's film career. The climax of the film sees Mr. Hyde and Captain Nemo fighting some type of mutant Hyde, and mutant Hyde looks absolutely abysmal. We can't fault the work too much, as the quality of early 2000 CGI is usually spotty even on the best of days, but this looks particularly horrid and pretty much ruins what could have been a really exciting sequence. Number 2. Ruined Rhino, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2014. This is often considered the weakest Spider-Man movie, and that's saying something considering the legacy of Spider-Man 3. A part of its negative reputation stems from the bland and visually embarrassing villains Electro and Rhino. Both villains are plagued with poor CGI work, with Rhino in particular suffering from Bruce Banner's floating head syndrome. Much like Bruce Banner, it consistently looks like Rhino's head is floating in his mech suit, and it completely eliminates the sense of danger and menace that a good superhero antagonist should always embody. Paul Giamatti is a great actor, but he was utterly wasted as Rhino. Number 1. Bruce in the Hulkbuster, Avengers Infinity War, 2018. For the most part, Avengers Infinity War looks spectacular, and it better considering the $400 million budget. There's one glaring visual flaw, and that's Mark Ruffalo's head inside the Hulkbuster. Every single shot of Bruce's head inside the Hulkbuster looks horrible, and it has a certain floaty quality to it that is never made convincing. It almost looks like Ruffalo's head is photoshopped onto the Hulkbuster itself, and the results are both generally bad and borderline laughable. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I am sure that you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.